Hunter x Hunter as a manga has always been one of the more thematic shonens, one of the ones where you can hope to find quite a lot of underlying themes and motivations for characters and arcs. It's not just some kind of power fantasy where the only point is how strong the main character is. The plots, power system and side characters are all thoroughly developed, and you can honestly have other videos dedicated to them by themselves. You can feel this kind of intentional setup and payoff of many themes over the course of the whole story, but for me personally, the arc that showcases this the best within the manga is that of the Chimera Ant Arc. This, for me, and I'm sure many others, is my favourite arc out of those in both the anime and manga of Hunter x Hunter, for a variety of reasons, and honestly makes it into the top 5 anime arcs of all time for me. The characters are fantastic, the setup to the final battle is phenomenal, and the fights are awesome. But to me, the most interesting and important thing about the arc is the underlying theming for two specific characters. And since you read the title, I'm sure you can tell that I'm talking about the link between Meruem and Gon. And before I start, I know that this arc has been memed on to hell and back because it kind of qualifies as baby's first arc with good writing. But regardless, I love this arc and I want to share my love with it for you guys. Gon is, of course, the main character that we've known for the entire story. I mean, he's the character that the entire manga is based around. And Meruem is a character that is introduced and exists for only this one arc. He's not some secret figure from Gon's past that appears. Him and Gon do not even interact during the arc. But somehow, their characters are so intrinsically linked that regardless of how much they interacted or even seen each other, they become mirrors of each other. One, throughout the course of the arc, becomes more human than he ever has been, and the other throws away his humanity. But to really emphasize how important this fact becomes for both characters, we need to investigate how they both get to this point. So in this video, starting with Meruem and then moving on to Gon, we'll have a look at their development up until the very instant where they cross paths briefly, and from that point, see how both of their arcs conclude. Now without further ado, let's get started and see how Meruem and Gon really are two sides of the same coin. Meruem's development starts before he's even born. His mother, the queen, washed up injured in the country of NGL and began planning to give birth to a new king. The interesting thing about chimera ants is that the prey that they eat seem to reflect upon the children they birth, a fact that will become extremely important later on after the queen starts to consume humans. The queen, while waiting for the king to be born, is fully dedicated to his development and creates 3 extremely powerful royal guards for him, one of which is born earlier than the others, Neferpitou, who will be the most important character regarding Gon's development when we cover that later. After around a month, the king wishes to be born, communicating with the queen from her womb. She tries to stop him, but he ignores her and tears his way through his own mother's womb with no regard to her safety. This already shows from the point that he is born, Meruem has no humanity. All he cares about is himself. And to be fair, at this point, what more can you expect from an ant? On top of killing his own mother, he kills 2 more ants in an instant. One for walking past him to try and save the queen, and the other for offering to clean the queen's flesh off of him. At this moment, all he cares about is eating. The royal guards come forward to show him to his meal, and Colt, the most human ant at this point, asks Neferpitou to help save the queen. But they refuse. To them, the queen is no longer important as the king is here, so they leave her to die. In Colt's own words, the king and the royal guards are evil. Meruem then lands in a nearby village and instantly kills 2 humans with a flick of his tail, then stabs and eats the brain of another. He laughs at how easily the humans were killed. He sees them as nothing but weak. And in a terrifying development, it turns out that he can already see Nen. Cutting back to the queen, and this will be very important later, she informs Colt and the humans that the king's name is Meruem, because at this point in the story we only know him as the king. The next move for Meruem is to take over the palace in East Gorto, killing the leader in the process, and he starts planning to gather all of the humans in the country to kill and eat. Since he doesn't have much to do until the selection, he starts to play board games with their greatest players and beats every single one of them, killing them after they are no longer of use to him. Every single one of them loses to him. All of them except one. And this is the character that completely changes Meruem's development forever. A blind girl named Komugi, the champion of a game called Gungi. Despite trying his hardest, Meruem cannot beat her at Gungi, and after numerous losses, he starts to respect her. The first time he has ever shown respect for anything other than himself. He tries to throw Komugi off by proposing a bet, to give her anything she wants if she wins. But if she loses, he shall take her left arm. Komugi responds by saying that he should kill her if she loses, because if she loses then her life is already over. Because all she lives for is Gungi, and once she loses, her usefulness disappears. Meruem, after hearing this, in a shocking display of respect, tears off his own arm because he realizes he was the one who wasn't taking the game seriously. Now, let's pause right here. I know obviously since I've been telling you this story probably over the course of 5 minutes, this seems like an extremely breakneck change. But let's remind ourselves that this is the same character that probably not even a week ago at this point, killed his own mother and beheaded humans without batting an eye. And yet here he is, mutilating himself for disrespecting a human. So we can see as viewers already, he is changing. But anyway, even after taking his own arm off, he refuses to stop the game and plays to completion, as to stop himself from humiliating himself even further. Later on, Meruem actually goes back on his word and allows the games to stop momentarily to let Komugi rest. On top of that, after gaining Nen that allows it to play Gungi even better, she even asks Meruem to stop playing and he agrees. This, once again, is an almost insane act of kindness from the character we seem to have known. The difference even now is astounding. He instinctively asks her for her name, showing that he does at least care enough about her to ask that. And in response, Komugi asks him for his name, and Meruem realizes that he does not actually know.
総帥様は総帥様のお名前は何とおっしゃられるのですか
世の名前世は何という
The previous Meruem would have dismissed this as something that he did not care to know, but the Meruem now finds himself curious. His human side is showing. What is his name? And if you've been taking notes throughout this video, you'll realize that the only people that actually know his name are Colt and the humans. Not him, not his royal guards. So when he asks them, he does not get the answer he wants. He starts to talk to them about Komugi and how she awakened her Nen, and starts to question how the selection will be sorted. The only humans that will be kept after the selection are those that will be useful in combat, meaning that if Komugi was part of it, she would be killed. He starts to almost grapple with the fact that he has killed a child without regard for their potential or usefulness. And just as you think he is about to come to a revelation, he smiles. He laughs and concludes that the ultimate power within this world is violence, and he is the strongest. He repeats himself over and over again. He is the strongest. Strength is all that matters. Physical, violent strength. It doesn't matter that Komugi is better at Gungi. He could kill her right now. So he decides that's what he's going to do. Enough is enough. She will die now. Because like he said, her strength doesn't matter. Her existence does not matter. So he enters her room, determined to kill her. And instead, he saves her from a bird that is attacking her. No thoughts, no will he won't he, on instinct he saves her. He shouts in frustration that she is hurt, asking why she didn't ask for help. And he even goes beyond that, saying to her face that she is important. If you can't tell by now, all that stuff about him killing her was him blowing smoke. He was conflicted within himself, trying to convince himself that being strong was what mattered, because that is what he is and what he was meant to be. The very purpose of his birth was to be strong. And yet here he is, wasting his concern on a being that to him, ironically, could be killed as easily as an ant. He finds himself questioning what he wants with her, and more importantly, what does he want with himself? For what purpose was he born? And with that, the palace invasion begins. I'll skip over the majority of the preparation for the invasion for now, as that will be more focused on in Gon's section. But for now, all you need to know is that a rain of dragons has hit the palace with no regard for what they destroy. And of all the places hit, the most important location is the building where Meruem and Komugi were at the time of the attack. The attack wasn't meant to kill or even injure the king or royal guards. It was too weak to do that. But if there was a human without Nen to guard themselves, the attack could do major damage to them. Pito flew to the king's side in an instant after the attack, but before even entering the room, they feel an overwhelming aura. The king's aura. And upon entering the room, Pito sees Meruem holding Komugi, who is bleeding gravely. And on his face is an expression so dark that it cannot be seen. The king is furious. Netero and Zeno, the humans who have taken the mission to kill the king, are also in the room with them. And instead of immediately attacking their target, they allow him to order Pito to heal Komugi after he regains his composure. Meruem, knowing why the men are here, offers to leave and go elsewhere to allow Komugi to be treated. Pito activates their ability, and Netero and Zeno are momentarily distracted, thinking to themselves that they could be killed right there and then, but Meruem simply walks past them. As Meruem and the two men walk out of the tower, Netero looks over and points backward, signaling that Pito is inside. And who is he pointing to? Gon. This is the moment that these characters cross paths. They do not talk, they do not even make eye contact, but this is where these two lines intersect for the briefest of moments. And this, in a display of phenomenal writing from Togashi, is also where their arcs are set in stone. I'd say at this point, Meruem and Gon are both on equal standing in terms of humanity. And I know that seems like a strange thing to say, but what makes people human is the core theme throughout this arc. So, as I said, this is the moment where they cross paths for the first and last time, and this is also the moment in the video where we jump over to the other side and see how Gon got to this point. We will come back to Meruem when we reach this point in Gon's story, but it's important that we can understand the journeys of both of these arcs before they begin their respective final ascent into humanity and descent beyond humanity. So let's rewind all the way back to before the king was even born, to when Gon and Killua met with Kite. So as I already said, we start Gon's journey in this arc with him reuniting with Kite. Kite, as you know if you've watched Hunter x Hunter, is a very important character in Gon's life. He was a friend of Ging, Gon's father, and saved Gon's life back on his home island. He's almost like the Shanks to his Luffy in a way. So after meeting each other again for the first time in years, they spend their time laughing and talking about Ging. Gon and Killua then decide to accompany Kite for the time being, and they find out about the Chimera Ants and the fact that they are most likely in NGL. After this, they head to NGL and almost immediately encounter the Chimera Ants, realizing that the takeover is much worse than they had thought. They fight a few ants, accidentally awakening one's Nen and traveling closer to the ant's nest. When they get there, they realize that they are way out of their league when they get attacked by Pito, who instantly, in one swipe, removes Kite's arm. Gon, as an immediate reaction, gears up to fight Pito, but before he can even react, Killua knocks him out and flees, leaving Kite on his own to fight. They leave NGL entirely and meet up with Netero, and are told that if they wish to rejoin the mission, then they need to prove themselves stronger than two other fighters, Knuckle and Shoot. They train with Biscuit, but even after getting stronger, they can't win against them, and don't manage to rejoin the mission. On top of that, Gon can't use Nen for a whole month because of Knuckles' ability, leaving him no choice but to leave Kite's rescue to someone else, as Gon has faith that Kite is still alive. He is beyond frustrated at his lack of strength, and cries along with Killua, showing that at this point in the arc, he is very much, obviously, still human. Unfortunately, Gon's faith in Kite is proven wrong, as we soon see a scene of Pito with Kite's decapitated head, proving that he very much was defeated, probably with relative ease. After a while, some more training, and after Gon goes on a date, Kite is finally rescued from the ants. Before Gon is allowed to meet him, he is warned that he's not the man that Gon knew anymore. But he insists, he needs to see him. Kite is released from Shoot's technique which holds him captive, and he looks horrific. Scars all over his face and body, one eye barely working, he can't even speak. At this point he might as well be dead. And you can see on Gon's face he is horrified. He lets Kite hit him over and over again, realizing he really is nothing but a fighting machine at this point, and after finally dodging a punch, he hugs him. His second stage is activated and we can see Pito's Nen ability above him, controlling him like a puppet on a string. So Gon can't do anything but promise to fix Kite and vow to take down Pito. He is clearly extremely frustrated here, but that is still completely reasonable for a person. The man who saved his life has been reduced to a training dummy, and he needs his revenge on the person who can do such a thing to him. Needing to once again prove that he's ready for battle after his Nen comes back, Moro challenges him to punch him as hard as he can, saying, "Just imagine I'm the one who did that to Kite." So Gon visualizes the face of Pito the moment Kite had his arm taken in the state that Kite is in now, and a dark shadow falls over his face. He charges his Janken. Moro realizes he made a mistake, but before he can release the attack, Killua steps in and stops him. And after stopping, Gon just nonchalantly admits, "Oh man, Moro, I was about to kill you." If you've been paying attention throughout the story of Hunter x Hunter, this actually has been a bit of a common thread for Gon's character. He always has been a bit of a psycho. Well, he's not exactly psychopathic, he's not normal at all. No normal person would ever become a hunter. Take, for example, the hunter exams. Hundreds of people die during them. They are extremely dangerous, but Gon doesn't spare a second thought to that. And back in York New City, the character Zip Hill says that Gon really isn't concerned with whether something is good or bad. All that matters to him is if it impresses him. That does not sound like your typical good protagonist, and Gon has never been that. But now that the circumstances of the arc allow him to take the anger he feels and use it, this is when he really lets it get away from himself. We will see more of this as we go on, but him being able to put enough strength into his attack to potentially kill Moro, a character who is on his side, says a lot about who he is. The remainder of this part of the arc is mostly concerned with the plots of other characters. There's quite a lot of Killua stuff, obviously Meruem too, who we already covered, but while Gon is wandering around the country, he's approached by Meruem, a Chimera Ant with the power of invisibility, who seeks to defeat the king because one of the ants that Meruem killed was Meruem's former adoptive father. He somehow managed to regain his human memories and now he wants revenge. Gon agrees to team up with him and once again states that he would be able to kill him without hesitation if he's lying. Skipping forward to the palace invasion now, Gon and Killua have been assigned to deal with Pitou, exactly as Gon wants. So after making sure everything is in place, the group storms the palace. Gon, Killua, Knuckle, Shoot, Moro, Icalgo, and Meruem all enter the palace through a portal next to the staircase, which Yuppie, another of the royal guards, is defending. And the instant that they do, dragons rain down. Gon, who was meant to run past Yuppie to get to Pitou, instantly changed targets just in case Knuckle was killed by the dragon attack. Everybody present is extremely impressed of Gon's quick decision making. The only one who did the same was Yuppie. But luckily, Knuckle managed to hit Yuppie while invisible through Meruem's ability, signaling to Gon that he can go ahead. Upon reaching the roof, Gon sees that the throne room is covered in smoke, meaning that the king and Pitou are elsewhere. Running across the roof, he looks over to the other tower, and there he sees him, the king. And behind him, Netero, who points at the tower behind him, telling Gon his opponent is in there, and Gon is furious. So, now we're caught up. We're at the intersection between the two characters. We've seen their journeys up until this point, the things that make Meruem human, and the things that serve as reasons for Gon to throw away his humanity. Meruem's focus is clearly on Komugi at this point, but none of the invaders knew there would be a human civilian within this palace. Zeno and Netero were both thrown off by the king's humanity, as they had been told that he was nothing but a mindless ant. And now Gon, who seeks his revenge on Pitou, will now have to grapple with the fact that the ants, the ones who turned Kite into a monster, are capable of humanity. Like I said before, this is a moment where they truly cross paths, both physically and metaphorically. So from here on, we won't go through both characters' stories separately, we will do them in tandem. We can cut back and forth between both of them, but now their stories are so intertwined that it feels like the right thing to do. And with that, we can pick up right where we left off. The king, well aware that Netero and Zeno aim to separate him from his guards, allows this to happen. As to him, it doesn't really matter. So, him and Netero head off to a suitable location to battle. Back at the castle, Gon immediately heads to Pitou, dead set on getting his revenge. Before he can set foot inside the tower that Pitou is in, Zeno warns Gon and Killua that it's up to them to make the call inside. Confused as to what he means, they head inside regardless. And the instant Gon sees Pitou, he's filled with rage. His aura flares up, catching Pitou's attention, and he asks if they remember him, then tells them he is here to save Kite. Pitou, on the other hand, was not even listening to Gon. Whatever he was saying, it didn't matter. All that mattered was the king's order: save Komugi. Killua is extremely confused by this. Why is Pitou protecting this human? They're supposed to be ants, monsters with no remorse. But Gon can't see the truth in front of him. He can't see the girl being saved. All that he sees is Kite. So he demands a fight. He demands Pitou steps away from Komugi. But Pitou does not, and only bows in front of Gon, showing they mean no harm. But Gon doesn't see the situation for what it is. All he wants is his revenge. He doesn't want to wait. Pitou begs for mercy, begs for Gon to wait. To Gon, this is incomprehensible. Save her? Why on earth would Pitou want to save anybody after what they did to Kite? Killua tries to reason with him, but Gon isn't having it. To him, there's no way they can trust these things. They're monsters. And as they're arguing about what they can do, Pitou breaks their own arm. Gon has no idea what to do. He starts shouting that it's not fair. Why are they healing this girl after all the things you did to Kite? And after that, he seems to reach a breaking point. Why should I wait? He starts to load up his Janken with everything he's got, obviously aiming to kill Pito, but Killua stops him. If Pito is killed now, there's nothing they can do to save Kite. But Gon, in a completely out of character fashion, just tells Killua it's got nothing to do with him. After calming down enough to satiate his bloodlust, Gon asks how long he must wait. Pito says 3 to 4 hours, but that's too long, it has to be less. 1 hour. Pito begs for just 1 hour, and Gon sits down and says he'll stay right here until it's done. Now let's pause for a second. This scene is absolutely masterful, because to be honest, how else would you react? This absolute monster who tore off your friend's arm and turned him into a puppet, a monster who kills without regard or remorse, is attempting to save a human's life. How could they do that? And Gon perfectly shows the inner conflict that would result from this. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to feel. And even with an innocent human's life at stake, he was more than ready to kill Pito anyway. The only reason that he chose not to was that it's to his benefit. If Pito could not restore Kite, then he'd have absolutely no reason to wait. He doesn't care about Komugi. Complete disregard for the life of an innocent does not seem to be a quality that shonen heroes should have. But like we already said, Gon is not a typical shonen hero. And at this point in the arc where all he cares about is restoring Kite, he would trample on anything to get that wish. Quite a lot of time passes after this within the arc where we don't see either Gon or Meruem. It ends up being 11 chapters, and after that time has passed, we check in on Gon again, who is doing as he says and is sitting waiting for Pito to finish. As he sits and waits, another one of the royal guards, Poof, shows up behind him aiming to kill him without being noticed. Pito begs Poof not to do it, as Gon would have killed Komugi if they had been interrupted, and Gon simply tells Poof to shut up, as it has nothing to do with him. Poof tries to leave, but Gon tells him to stay put, and Pito urges him to listen. Throughout this arc, Poof has been strongly against the king's developing humanity, thinking that it comes between him and his true purpose as a strong ruler. There had been times within the arc where he has even thought about killing Komugi, but chose not to because he is loyal to the king first and foremost. He thought Pito felt the same, but upon seeing the situation with Gon, he starts to question what has changed. His immediate thought when he walked into the room was that Gon was sitting there to see that Komugi was healed, and that Pito was being held hostage to do so. But since that is not the case, he asks for a complete account of what happened in this room, trying to acquire the king's location. Within the same chapter, we finally see the king again, him and Netero having finally arrived at a suitable location. After landing, the king immediately questions Netero, asking why they even fight. Meruem would simply kill him, and he finds that pointless. He then starts to explain that he has changed, at first only seeing humans as food to be consumed, but now understanding that there are humans that deserve to live. He offers to spare Netero, but before the fight can begin, we cut back to Gon. Only for a moment though, as it just shows Pito explaining the situation to Poof and managing to convey the king's location without alerting Gon. So with that, Poof splits his body and sends the majority to the king, and the fight can begin. This moment before the fight starts sees Meruem finally state his ideology, fully showing and explaining that he is in fact becoming a human. He criticizes the way that humanity is set up, borders creating imaginary partitions between humans where on one side, people starve, and on the other side, people live in luxury. He has moved beyond from his purpose being to kill. He has a new goal now: to destroy all borders and give the humans a world without unjust want. He says that he has finally realized what his power is for: to protect the weak who deserve to live. Now let's pause once again here for a second. If you took this speech and gave it to a traditional Shonen Jump protagonist, it would feel completely natural. When you think of a person that wants to use their power to protect the weak, what word would you use to describe them? Hero. They would be a hero. Somehow, in one single arc, Meruem has changed from a tyrannical, power-hungry ruler to someone who craves equality throughout the world. He is no villain, especially not at this point. He has made the realization that people should live on the same level as one another, and this is more than most humans can say they have realized throughout their whole life. Netero, after listening to this, even says himself that Meruem is wavering between ants and humans. Meruem does not seek to fight, he simply wants to speak with Netero, but unfortunately, that is not Netero's job, and he strikes Meruem. The king does not retaliate, he does nothing but compliment Netero's attack. Once again, he sits down with no intent to fight. Netero strikes again, and Meruem, annoyed, releases some of his aura, causing Netero to instinctively retreat. Regardless, Meruem sits down again, insisting the only thing that they shall exchange will be words. This is now a matter of pride for Netero. He wants to teach the king a lesson. The king still, at this point, does not know his name. So Netero tells the king that he knows his name, and that he will tell him what it is if he can make him give up. Now, you would think that if he really wanted to make his point, Meruem would refuse and be unbothered by the reveal of his name. But the thing is, having a name is something that is so innate to being human that Meruem cannot help but be curious about it. Having a name to refer to himself by would make him truly human. And so, he agrees. But he will not kill Netero, he will only make him admit defeat. Ironically though, as awesome as the actual fight is, it doesn't really contribute towards Meruem's character. It's the setup to the fight that makes it really interesting. But to be fair, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't moments within the fight that show us what Meruem is truly like. Even as he is getting struck by Netero over and over again, the only thing he feels for him is admiration, showing that now, at heart, he really is a pacifist. He even goes as far to openly express his commendation for Netero, congratulating him on the fruits of his labour. To get the fight over with, he begins to compare it to Gungi, saying that although the attack patterns may as well be infinite, every person has a unique rhythm, meaning there's only so many moves he can take. He laughs to himself, enjoying himself as though he were playing a game. Before seeing the fight end between Netero and the king, we once again cut back to Gon. Quite a lot happens here, but essentially Knuckle confronts Poof and asks him to step outside, but Gon doesn't let him go. Poof, now ignoring Pito, leaves regardless, but instead of attacking Komugi, Gon just simply cuts the time limit by 10 minutes. Pito, having a moment of introspection, is shocked by Gon's unwavering determination, and suggests that he could even begin to affect the king. And with that realization, Pito makes the decision that they need to kill Gon. We get a quick cut back to the king, in which it admits that he's starting to ache, but before it can begin to affect him, he cuts Netero's leg off and demands to know his name. Netero refuses to tell him, plugs up his wound and begins to fight again, but within the next minute, the king took his arm too. Meruem sits down once again, assuming his opponent will admit defeat, but he does not. Instead, he releases his final attack, the Zero Hand, using all of his aura in a final blow. But the king survives, once again commending Netero. But as a result of this fight, Meruem begins to realize that humanity is a detriment to the Chimera Ants due to their individuality. He demands one more time for his name, and Netero finally concedes. He calls Meruem by his name, but the king begins to shiver. He feels fear for the very first time. And with that, Netero stabs his own heart and detonates the bomb within it.
「驚くほどの殺傷能力を誇り、技術さえ確立してしまえ爆炎の得意な姿からミニチュアローズ、貧者のバラと呼ばれ」
The two royal guards, Poof and Yuppie, arrive at the explosion, searching desperately for the king, only to find his charred body barely alive. They share their own bodies with him, and then we get one of the weirdest scenes within the manga where they start to compare what they're doing to maternal love and get kind of freaky over it. That bit was kind of weird. Anyway, regardless of that, the next scene we encounter is back with Gon and Pito. He calls out Pito for finishing the surgery, even though Pito tried to keep it hidden, and Gon demands they get up and head to where Kite is. Komugi wakes up and begins to ask what happened, and when Pito starts to ask something, Gon simply says the next time they speak out of line, he'll kill Komugi. Straight up. Just completely admits to being one wrong word away from killing this innocent. So they leave. But before they do, Gon tells Killua and Knuckle to take care of Komugi until he gets back, and when Pito heals Kite, they'll let her go. So not only did he threaten to kill her, he's also using her as a hostage. Cutting back to the king, he is now fully revived, but he seems to have lost his memories. He recognizes Poof and Yuppie, but he does not know why he is here, nor who told him his name. Poof sees this as an opportunity, and flies back to the palace as fast as possible to kill Komugi. As they are heading back to the palace, we can see that the king has now absorbed the abilities of Poof and Yuppie, making him an even greater threat than before. But even with this, he still feels that something is missing, and we as viewers know that that is Komugi. We next get back to Gon and Pito after they arrived at the castle, with the phone in Pito's pocket telling them that the ants retrieved Komugi, which we know not to be true as Killua has her. So thinking that Gon does not have a hostage anymore, Pito steals themselves to kill him. As they get to the room that houses Kite, the truth is finally revealed to Gon. The truth which we've known all along. Kite is already dead. He cannot be healed. Tears stream from Gon's eyes and he collapses to his knees, blaming himself. I did this. I killed him. A million thoughts rush through his head, some of denial, some of guilt, but all heart-wrenching. Pito activates their Nen ability, and Gon, for just a second, thinks that it was a lie, and that Kite can be healed, but instead, Pito just fixes their own arm. Admitting that they need to kill Gon, they step forward. But Gon is furious. He calls Pito a liar, and says that it just needs to end now.
もうこれで終わってもいい。だからありったけを。
And the next time we see him, he's turned into a fully grown man. And with only 2 hits, he destroys Pito. He sacrificed all the Nen that he will ever have for this one moment. He threw away his gift. He threw away the rest of his life. He threw away his humanity. Killua arrives, only to see Gon beating Pito's lifeless corpse. However, after death Nen intensifies, and Pito's corpse is turned into a puppet for the sole purpose of killing Gon. Gon loses his arm, but uses the absolute limit of his power to obliterate Pito's body, completely disregarding any price he would have to pay. He was so caught up in his revenge that he threw everything away to get it. He could have died himself for all he cared. He got so absorbed in the thought of bringing Kite back that he had nothing to lose when that didn't come true. After sacrificing all of his Nen, he truly became a monster. With Gon's story finished, all we have left is the king, who is still searching around the palace for a reminder of the thing he cannot remember. He begins slowly piecing it together, with the memory that he ordered Pito to do something advancing the process. He asks for Pito to be retrieved immediately, which we know isn't possible, and then goes to hunt down the stragglers. With his newfound strength, he immediately neutralizes Knuckle and Melioran. Realizing that the king is inches away from finding Komugi, Poof invites him to play a game. He sets the rules and they decide on the prize. If Poof and Yuppie win, they will be granted one wish, any wish. And if Meruem wins, they will tell him what they are hiding. Before they are found, the remaining stragglers manage to hide Komugi in the underground section of the palace. Meruem, still waiting to begin the search, can still sense that he's missing something. He looks around the room and finally sees a Gungi piece, realizing that not only was he playing with someone, he has never even won once. Then, immediately after, we see his nose bleeding, something unheard of for the king. The stragglers are once again strategizing on how to stall the king, and realize that hiding Komugi until the king dies is their only hope. But won't that take forever? Are they gonna wait until the king dies of old age? No. Netero's bomb was poisoned, and the king will be dead within a few hours. They decide to negotiate with him and push his buttons, but never truly giving him what he truly wants, admitting to themselves that they are no better than the ants, no less cruel than them. The king, still searching, approaches Welfin, a Chimera Ant traitor to the king who I haven't mentioned yet because he hasn't been too important. After a discussion about the secret Poof is keeping from the king, Welfin realizes he is about to be killed. He only has one word left to say, one last thing to utter. And out of all the things he could have said, the one word that comes out of his mouth, and with that word, the king is reminded. His tone shifts. He figures out where Komugi is, and even after Welfin spouts insults at him, saying he is no true king, he simply walks away and wishes him luck on living a human life. After heading to the underground section of the palace, Meruem speaks to Pam, another character I haven't mentioned yet, but who was one of the stragglers. He tells her that the humans have won, the battle is over, and all he wishes is to see Komugi. Even though the king knows he will die, the only desire that he has is to spend his remaining time with someone precious to him. This is actually once again an extremely important part for Meruem's character, as one thing I have neglected to mention is that he hates repeating himself. Time and time again throughout the arc, he says, "I will not repeat myself. Do not make me repeat myself." As to him, it is a waste of his time. His words should be heard the first time, and his will should be granted. But upon being chastised by Pam, he admits that all he can do is keep asking her with all his heart and begins to prostrate before her. This man, who has never in his life repeated a sentence, will say it as many times as need be, just so he can spend his last remaining moments with a human. And not only that, but the proudful king that he once was would lower himself to bowing in front of a human to get what he wants. At this point, there is no arguing that he is not human. He has left his ant side behind and has obtained true humanity. Pam allows Meruem to see Komugi, and they begin playing Gungi once again. Before seeing the king's final moments, we actually get a few epilogue chapters that cover the side characters from the arc and where they end up. We also, within this part, see what has become of Gon. He is in the hospital in critical condition and requiring life support. Although we don't directly see him, I can show you this picture of his arm that we see in a future arc to better show the severity of his condition. And to wrap his journey up, Killua swears to save Gon. After the 2 epilogue chapters, we finally get to see what becomes of the king. Him and Komugi set up to play Gungi, and he finally tells her his name. He also insists that she drops the Lord, showing that he truly views the two on equal standing. After playing for a little while, Komugi begins to cry and question whether or not she deserves to be so happy, after which Meruem admits that he does not have long to live. He tells her he wanted to spend his time left with her, but that the poison is contagious and she too shall die. The only response she gives is the moving of a Gungi piece, and both of them realize at the same time that this moment here is why they were born. A king who was promised everything from the day he was born, and a poor, blind girl whose only purpose in life is Gungi. Both of them have came to the same conclusion and arrived at the same place. They both live for each other. They continue to play in darkness, as at this point, Meruem has gone blind due to the poison. He asks in between moves if Komugi is there, and she is. He asks again. She is still there. He admits that not once could he ever beat her. He feels tired and says that he shall sleep a short while, asking her to keep holding his hand. He asks her to stay with him, and she replies, saying that they will never be apart. He thanks her, and then asks her to say his name one last time.
最後に
はい。
名前を呼んでくれないか。
おやすみなさい。メルエム。
Thank you for watching this video. I know it was rather long, but I really hope you enjoyed. If you're still here, please consider subscribing, as I will have more videos like this in the future. This has been Nitrocious, and have a great day.